Uh, it has come to my attention that a lot of people that actually follow my content are not like YouTube junkies. In fact, when I was looking through some of the subscribers, a lot of people like I'm the only YouTuber they follow, or they got on YouTube to follow this channel, that sort of thing. So, in that, with that knowledge in hand, I want to update you as to what the drama is on YouTube right now. And the main drama is between this guy. Carlos Maza and Steven Crowder. Okay, now these are two guys. Carlos Maza works for Vox, and he went to YouTube and tried to get Steven Crowder shut down because Steven Crowder was harassing him constantly with using calling him queer and making fun of him and making fun of his sexual orientation. And and Steven Crowder has a comedy show. And so then everybody in the world is weighing in on this. From there was the biggest podcaster I think in the world still is Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan had on David Pakman on his show a couple days ago, and they had some interactions about this. And essentially, what happened was that Steven Crowder defended himself. This guy Carlos Maza went to YouTube and said, "Can you please block and stop Steven Crowder from harassing me?" And YouTube came back and said that Steven Crowder's actions are protected speech. And so now, it becomes like the left versus right thing, and the right is sort of claim victory on this one. And so you've got all the talking heads talk back and forth. And so we had David Pakman, who is a lefty progressive, on Joe Rogan's show talking about this. And then there was a parallel drawn by Joe Rogan saying, well, you've got people like Sam Cedar harassing Dave Rubin. Now, Dave Rubin's a guy who he used to be on the Young Turks, and then he kind of switched teams and became this more conservative guy, and he's now sort of funded by the Koch brothers and whatnot. And so Sam Cedar, who's a progressive, spends a lot of his videos mocking David Rubin and kind of bringing to light some things that Dave Rubin says that he thinks are silly, don't make sense, etc. So on Joe Rogan's show, he was saying, well, isn't Steven Crowder going after this Carlos Maza guy kind of the same thing as Sam Cedar going after Dave Rubin? And you just kind of see the perspective of the right. It's funny, if you watch this interview with David Pakman, you see Joe Rogan sort of saying he's voted lefty on pretty much everything, and that he's a lefty in many ways. But, Joe Rogan has become kind of the arbiter of a lot of these issues for many people, in that he kind of has people from both sides on his show. But I do really kind of feel at this point that Joe Rogan is more leaning to the right than to the left, regardless of what he says his voting record is. And this is just fuel for the talking heads. And then, Tucker Carlson from Fox News comes in and, and basically, the right sees this as the left sort of kind of trying to censor free speech. And, as far as somebody was making the point a while ago that, like, it used to be back in the day that if you have a stand-up comedian, they could sit there and make jokes about Republican people all day, and it was really funny. Now it's switched, that you could actually kind of stand up there and make jokes about like social justice warriors and the left trying to censor people, and it's funny. So now it's like the Democrats are kind of become kind of the butt of jokes based on this sort of thing. And, one of Joe Rogan's biggest points in this whole sort of discussion was that calling someone queer, the word queer has kind of been reclaimed by the gay community as not having negative connotations to it, and it can't be compared to like black people using the N-word because it's not as strong of a situation, I would say. But the question is, when you call someone queer, is that a slur? Are you slurring them or not? And Steven Crowder is more of a comedian than a serious political talking head, and thus his audience is like a lot of younger people. Well, it's not that all comedy is for younger people, but in this case, his audience is younger people, and he hasn't been someone who comes on and debates specific policies. He's been more of just a guy who's known as being for the right, who is a comedian and comes on and does sort of outrageous stuff. But some of his comedy skits are really funny, and I think I did see one where he was doing something about Bob Ross that was really funny. So, I guess, where do I stand on all this? Well, I do believe in freedom of speech. I guess I stand that Steven Crowder should not be deplatformed, but he should have freedom to say what he wants. But I'm certainly not anyone who is interested in watching his show. So let his show exist. It's kind of the same thing when I came on to defend Alex Jones. It's like let him exist, but I'm just not going to support him. So there you go. This kind of came up, the idea to talk about some of this YouTube stuff that's drama that you wouldn't know about unless you're in the YouTube community, with this stuff last week with James Charles and Tati, that whole incident. So I'm going to continue to kind of bring you some inside stuff on YouTube if when stuff comes up that's interesting. The other thing that's interesting this week is H3H3 did have a baby. Check out H3H3 Productions. It's one of the funniest YouTube channels out there. He came to prominence about, I think, 2 years ago. There was this famous incident where this guy came up to a woman, and she felt that he was harassing her somehow, and she asked his name, and he says, "My name is Hugh." And she said, "What's your last name?" And he said, "Mungus, Hugh Mungus." And she got very offended and like flipped out, and it became this viral video. And H3 got the guy who, from the viral video, the humongous guy, and interviewed him for his program, and that really kind of exploded him to being well known. But he's a comedian online, H3H3 Productions. Please check him out. And the big news this week was that he had a child. So, or his wife did. And that is it for your news update for YouTube. Thanks for watching. As I said before, we'll be back tomorrow with position analysis, UVXY position discussion, as well as ideas for Beyond Meat, BYND. We'll look at the option screen together for BYND, and there's some juicy stuff out there to trade. I see some stuff I like. Take a look at it, and we'll look at it together tomorrow. That's BYND coming up. You can get your YouTube news here, but you can also get something that you can get nowhere else, which is analysis of options positions and volatility and trading ideas for options trading. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.